Good morning, faculty and students. I would like to thank my mentor, Mr. Buck, for putting up with me throughout this process. Over the years, I've driven many things. If it has an engine, stays on the ground, then I've probably driven. Starting when I was about 2, I became interested in vehicles and motors. It quickly became an interest, and I became educating myself about motorized equipment and the way it works. By the time I was 6, I could drive a car or a tractor, and when I was 8, I learned to drive a stick shift. When I was 8, I rode a dirt bike for the first time ever. I promptly ran into a tree and came to an arboreal stop. The tree and I were both unharmed, but the dirt bike was a little messed up. From then on, I wanted a dirt bike more than anything else. Then one day, around Christmas, my grandfather took my dad and I to a motorcycle dealer, and he purchased my Yamaha TTR 110. I've had 5 years of fun on that bike and counting, and I can count up the number of wrecks I've had on one hand. Knock on wood. And I still have all my fingers. This is how I learned not to take my limbs for granted. In fact, I've learned to take nothing for granted, neither my fingers nor the people that have meant so much to me. Over the years, many people have influenced me to become a better person. Mr. Broy, my first real mentor in the middle school, taught me a quote that I will remember for the rest of my life. It goes something like this: "It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but it's the size of the fight in the dog." It didn't matter to me whether it was a wrestling match or a math test. He taught me to be strong and give it my all. Many people have played an important role in my life, but few people have played a role like Mr. Broy. My 5th grade year at Calvert School was when I met him. I remember gym and health class as being a fun time for games and learning. I remember 6th grade much more vividly. He was my advisor, and every day for advisory we would go to the weight room. This put me into better shape than I am in now. With his help, the 2 of us started the wrestling team. He taught the team well, and we had a successful season. After a friend's school meet, he dropped me and one other team member off at Calvert. I was the last Calvert School person to talk to him, and my last words to him were, "See you tomorrow." On a snow day in January, my dad pulled me into his office and told me that Mr. Broy had a fatal heart attack and died. I was in shambles for the rest of the day. About a week later, in memory of Mr. Broy, I managed to wrestle in an honorary match at Calvert. I had a good match. Over the years, many other people have influenced me and made me into the person that I am today. One of my favorite people in the world, my grandmother Rita, taught me about my father's side of long-lost Jewish tradition that hasn't been practiced in 2 generations. She taught me to stay sharp no matter what happened. We used to go to this place called Fields, where I would order a grilled cheese sandwich and an Oreo milkshake. I remember having Hanukkah in her apartment for the last time. My sister and I were sitting around her dining room table. Rita was saying Hebrew prayers, and we were lighting candles and eating chocolate coins. About a year later, her health began to worsen. She was in great shape for being 96, but we had to move her to a hospital. The last time I ever saw her was at a hospital on the last afternoon of her life. She was asleep, but when we were leaving, I said, "Goodbye, I love you." And she smiled. About a week later at her funeral, I gave a brief memorial speech to honor her. I knew that our happy times were over, and that is one reason why I believe you can't take people for granted. People like Rita and Mr. Broy are the people that change other people's lives, and they certainly cannot be taken for granted. I remember Mr. Broy's entry in my yearbook, urging me to do a wheelie on my dirt bike over the summer. I never did learn that summer, but after he died, I felt obligated to learn. I started to practice with some success. As of now, I'm still learning how, but I can wheelie a dirt bike for a short distance now. It has caused me some serious pain, but I know Mr. Broy is smiling down on me. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Sean.